let me just kind of start as we're waiting here. And, if we can't get a connect, we might have to end a little early and hopefully reschedule to get Ash back. But one of the reasons more than ever it's important to connect is connecting more than anything, more than exercise, more than what you eat, is incredibly important for your mental and physical health. So I was a founder of a startup called Simple Suitor, where we created experiences that surprise and delight and got people talking in any situation. And we were trying to solve the loneliness problem. And if you followed anything a little bit about the loneliness problem, that um, North 50 over 50% of North Americans live alone. Uh, People who self-identify as being signal on average haven't had a date in over 2 years, um, and that the mean average of what people would call a close friend in North America went to less than one in 2014. And a close friend is someone you go to with a problem or financial issue, like if you need to borrow money or whatnot. And that is a horrible situation. And if we look at the health statistics around, um, connecting and having conversations and talking to people, and that the effect that has on your health, just a simple smile is more important than what you eat and how much you exercise as to longevity and whether you're going to get heart disease and a number of these things. So it's definitely important, and now more than ever because we're not together. I'm sitting in a room by myself. I was hoping to have a chat with my good friend Ash. I guess maybe his network went down, and maybe he will dial in or whatnot so we can chat. But now I'm alone, talking just to some names in the attendee list here. So, but more importantly, how do we get that human connection? How do we now, when it's just a screen, how do we reach out to people we don't really have a good relationship? How do we start connecting and building those relationships when we're not able to have those coffee conversations, when we're not able to um, randomly meet people that we were thinking about and say, hey, let's have that discussion. Now you're calling people out of the blue, or you're reaching out to them on LinkedIn that you haven't necessarily met, and you're trying to make or haven't had taken the conversations to the next level to have those things. So it's important to still get those connections, get those emotional releases, get those things going. One, from a personal health perspective, just like I talked to, but being able to build your network and whatnot. And Ash is back. How you doing, buddy? I figured you might have lost your network or something.
My sincerest apologies, Craig. I don't know how you do what you do on a daily basis. Just on the day of my 11th hour, my most beautiful time with you, my internet goes crashing and I had to log in on my phone. But, I marvel at people like you who manage to do this day in and day out. my, my apologies, I am back.
Well, I'm glad you're back. I just gave a quick overview of a little bit about um, why health connecting is more important to your health than ever now, and that it's more important than diet and exercise to your longevity and heart disease. And now that we're not getting out and going for coffees and going to the workplace and having our regular conversations, it's more important than ever from a mental health and a physical health perspective to have those conversations. And so why don't we start from your perspective? How important or why? Actually, why don't we start at the beginning? Because Ash Silva, welcome back. How are you doing, buddy?
Fantastic, Mr. Craig Major. It is such a pleasure to be a part of your Toronto Starts. I've been an admirer of yours for the longest time, and for me to be a contributor, I am honored. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to you and I providing a whole bunch of value for our guest today.
So, before we get started, could you tell people a little bit about yourself? You call yourself a super connector. What does that mean?
Well, it just so happened that the guy that redid my LinkedIn page used that term, and was stuck living up to it. So I love the word. Um, you know, One of the things I've noticed in building a network, and what does that mean? I think one of the things that's always been a part of me is how do I create value for people? And it's ingrained in me that the first thing I look out for is how do you create value? Matter of fact, I've got it right here on my laptop, and I read it every day in the morning. It's a little sticky note on my laptop. What is value? How do I create it? What is valuable for others? And I approach everything I do through the day with what is value? How do I create it? And how do I see what is valuable for others and bring it to them? And so to answer your question, aside from what I do, which is publishing books and printing books at the best prices in Canada and turning authors into authorities by taking their book and making it into workbook and workbooks into workshops, etc., the biggest thing that came to me was I started creating value for not only the authors, but everybody I spoke with. And that kind of value turned out into business, maybe directly or even indirectly, with people telling me, Ash, can you connect me to this? Do you know somebody who can do this? Who do you know that can, get this done? And so that's how I started to connect people to other business owners with resources, strategies, opportunity. More business is what it turned out to. And I got to tell you, I claim the name Super Connector. I am just as much of a super connector as you are, Mr. Craig Major. And that is the story of how I got that term, Super Connector.
Fantastic. And I mentioned during the break when you were off fixing your technical issues that I'm the founder of TorontoStarts. We're now the largest startup community in Canada with over 22,000 active entrepreneurs. We're doing these daily videos. On Mondays, it's twice a day. We're trying to get up to twice a day overall, among other things, to create more content and bring the community together. So let's kick it off with how important or why is connecting important in the first place?
Well, I think connecting is probably the most important thing any of us can do, whether it is, and however we define success, I think connecting is the key, whether it's success in business, success in sales, success in our, romantic life, or success in whatever. And the reason is because it all starts and ends with having a connection. I think Zig Ziglar said it best. And this is whatever we want to do in life. It says we can get whatever we want in life if we help others get what they want first. And I think that's a very, very key example of how I live my life, is how do I go out to people and see what they want first? And I think that really becomes the key. Connecting, there's been stories, and I can't quote them right now, that to be disconnected, and there was one done recently in the Wall Street Journal as well, to be disconnected is akin to dying. We can actually die because we're social beings. And even though our brains might be in the hunter-gatherer stage right now, and we live in a village, and right now we're in a global village, it's all about connecting and staying connected, especially in today's pandemic times. It is so unprecedented that we're all stuck inside our homes. So how do we move on and continue and stay connected, which is the key to, I think, having everything we want, whether it's in business or in our personal lives.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was getting when we got you back is, how now do we connect, to those people that we would have normally went over to their office or saw them in line at coffee or at our co-working space or we haven't even met yet, but been meaning to, and now here we are, physically distanced. I got to reach out to them via email. Maybe I can find a phone number. Maybe I got to reach out on LinkedIn. How do I do that? And what's the difference between doing that on a personal level? Hey, somebody I like, and maybe we can collaborate on something, or I don't know if we're into card games together or whatever, or even a girl or someone of the opposite sex I want to reach out to. Just start having a relationship with, whatever that is, friendship at this point, because we need to connect with people. And one of the things I do regret is being single right now. Like, if I could have made some different choices in February, I probably would have, but now I'm self-isolation and a single person, and how do I start connecting to people? So what's the difference on a personal level versus business level, and how do I do it now in this landscape?
I think it's important, and that's a great question, because I think it's important to actually define the new landscape, because it has changed drastically. And so what we may have been used to before, which is the world of meetups, where we used to go out there, networking, events, luncheons, dinners, movies, galas, retreats, co-working spaces were huge. And now look at co-working spaces as a way to, well, we're not in there right now, churches. And what has happened right now with physical distancing, I don't like to use the word social distancing, but physical distancing, and is we've got Zoom, we've got online clients and channels, FaceTime, Messenger, WhatsApp, social media, and the various groups. And we've still got the trusted telephone. And I think whether it is a relationship we're looking for, and again, back to the question, is it a relationship we're looking for? Whether it's a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, whether we want to create a friendship or we want to have business, the thing is to reach out on the channels available to us. Now, how do we reach out in the channels available to us? Yeah, we've got all the social media, and you talked about all of these things. One of the things that I would really love to leave everybody with here, which is kind of like a pet peeve for me, like, you and I, we've maxed out on our friends on Facebook. We've got 500 plus connections on LinkedIn. And one of the things I've noticed is that when people add me as a friend or send me a friend and a connection request on LinkedIn, it's just a quick friend request. You hit the button and it's like friend request, and I accept the friend or I don't accept the friend. I have never, ever, except for a few rare instances, seen someone send me a messenger note saying, Ash, I admire you for what you do, or I think you do this very well, and I would like to connect with you because this is my product service. I think there might be a fit for us to work together. No, it's just a friend request, friend request, friend request, friend request. And that's good, but without stepping outside of the block and saying, this is why I want to add you. This is the value I want to bring you. This is what I think we can do together. This is the bigger vision of what's possible. And I think if more people started to do that with their reaching out, whether it's for business or pleasure, that would be something really, really key that I think would benefit them, because you'd have actually a much, much bigger response rate if you were to do it than just clicking the button and adding friends.
I was muted there. Sorry. I
Oh,
sometimes just
I thought it was your turn to
yeah.
take a loop out.
Sometimes I drink coffee when you're talking, so people don't need to hear me slurping.
Okay.
So sometimes we're talking about reaching out and connecting a lot. I really lost my train of thought there. Um, what was your last point? I apologize. The coffee slurping.
Yeah. Well, that's why, cheers to you, my friend. This looks like coffee, but if I could show you there's some lemon water in you, maybe I need a coffee.
Okay, back to characterization of the relationship you want to have with people. I think we were at. It just took me that second to get back there. When I'm talking to startups, I always talk about, the relationship they want to have with their customers and the relationship they want to have with their suppliers. And, when we're going through the business model canvas and ideation, what is that relationship you want to have? And people look at you funny and say, okay, well, let me be specific. You go on Amazon, you buy something, you sort, you look at the reviews, you put a couple things in your cart, you press buy, you leave. You don't want someone from Amazon calling you up and saying, how was your shopping experience today? Can we sell you insurance? Would you like, you bought your product and you've left. It's like a vending machine. You picked your Coke and you got your thing, and you don't want to have a long-term relationship. But if you're buying software that's the lifeblood of your business, you want to understand the support model and support teams, and how long are you going to be there, and what kind of relationship can I have with you. And that's a different kind of relationship. Same thing when you're talking about personal relationships. Sometimes you want transactional relationships just because, hey, let's have a conversation. Transactional relationships, hey, you want to go play baseball, you want to go play soccer, or you're part of this or part of that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's where you've defined your friendship. So approaching what you want out of the relationship and defining where those channels are is a good place to start.
Yes, I think so. And I really love the fact that you made the distinction as well, Craig, between reaching out to suppliers and reaching out to customers. And yes, you further made the distinction. how do you, is there a difference between reaching out for the Amazon buyer and for someone that is buying a more complicated product or service where you want to have that relationship? And I still think that the answer to all four of those distinctions in the quadrant are the same thing. People do business with people because they know, like, and trust them. And I think we're moving the model even closer to the fact that people will do business with people that they know, love, and trust them. And I say that because we're moving more from you're a number only in the networking event economy to, hey, I care about you. What is going on with you? How can I support you in your progress? And how can I support you not only in times like this, but we're kind of coming to a different world where this is going to be a world of showing people that we actually care about them. And back to the old adage that we've all heard, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that goes right across the board. Now, to make those distinctions, yes, it further separates with whether you're contacting a buyer. How do you contact someone that you want to do business with, who is a supplier and who is a customer? There's different ways. I mean, you've got restaurants right now that I see that are moving into this new phase with curbside pickup and delivery, or delivery rather. You've got pharmacies who are delivering product. You've got a whole bunch of companies moving into a different way of doing business. But from a connecting point of view, it's all connecting on email, social media, etc. How do you have those conversations and make the cold call to a supplier? How do you say, hey, my name is Ash Silva, calling from Silva Communications. I've noticed that, that maybe we can do business together for so and so and so reasons. Now, that's a very quick way to start and create value. But sometimes you just want to say, hey, how are you guys making out? What are some of the challenges you got in today's day and age? How are you coping with COVID? And what is something that I might be able to find in my own journey that might be valuable to you as a piece of information? So you want to come in with questions that show value like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to approach it. And leading back to what you were saying with the whole connect, using some sort of LinkedIn automation or just, connect. I'm guilty of doing that, but on the other end, um, I rarely I've over 14,000 connections, I think, on LinkedIn. And so I'm really well, I look at them all now. At first I was like, yeah, okay, I accept them. But now I'm, okay, let's be more, once you have so much, you're more selective because it's a lot of noise. So if you're connecting with me and sending me these things, it's best to really personalize it to some degree. I get a lot of, hey, I help business like you all the time. And I'm like, okay, can you describe what my business is? Because I bet you can't, and I bet you haven't. So, but if you knew what my business was, that, I run the largest startup community in Canada. We have 22,000 active entrepreneurs. We have a range of 130,000 in our reach, and we're doing all these different projects. Then you could definitely approach and say, listen, this is what I do. This is what I can offer your community, and let's work together on something. But no, I never get that. I get connect or, hey, I'd like to help you get leads. Yeah, I don't need leads. But maybe some of my community does. So if you approach it slightly different, that would be a win. But people are just looking at the numbers game. So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. To make that long story short, which is too late because it's long, you know, playing the numbers game, I'm going to get a response. I'm going to get 1%, 2%, whatever that number is, depending on my messaging. And I just got to send 1,000 people at a time to get 10 or 20 leads. So I'm just going to do that. Now, what is that compared to, actually taking a little bit of time and connecting with people? What's the success rate? Is it really worth that extra time?
It's very hard to say because there are two schools of thought that I've come across and I implement them both. There are some times when I'll come in there. I mean, when networking events used to happen, and let's just say that it's the new networking on LinkedIn right now, or on Facebook, and you're reaching out to people that you want to do business with, authors in my case that have a book or they wanted to write a book or whatever it is in the various sites. You can sometimes come right to the chase and say, hey, this is what I do. This is where I think we could work together. And maybe before that, there's a little preliminary questions of, hey, what's important to you? Where are you going? Or, what is the purpose of your book, etc., or that sort of thing. And there's a even quicker way that I used to use as an approach, which I don't think is the right way, which is you come in right for the sale and say, hey, here's how I can help you. And if the answer is no, well, next. I think now in realizing my mistakes and doing it that way, I love the fact that I can probe and approach someone and let them know who I am. And there's various ways that I want to do that. One is if I'm connecting to a potential business owner that is going to do business with me. They're going to pay me money. The other one is if I'm connecting to a potential customer or sorry, that I want to buy their product. Now, if I want to buy, and I've done this before, and I don't know how appropriate you might find this, but I found it's worked very, very well for me in terms of making my connections. If I was going to be a customer of, say, a car dealership, I'll deal with the salesperson. I've made a deal. The manager knows me at this point. But at that point, I want to also know the owner of the dealership that I've just done business with, only because it just might be someone of influence who may or may not be able to be helped by me in other ways and help me as well in return. But let's look at it with the way I wanted to help them. So if I've had a specially great relationship with the salesperson, I've just purchased an automobile, I'll not only take it to the sales manager, but I'll want to speak to the owner and write him or her a letter or do a commendation right there and a testimonial. So they get to know me, but they get to know me in the context of saying something about their salesperson and their sales manager and the thing. Now, what if at the same time I'm a coffee dealership, or I'm a stationery, or I do printing, or whatever it is? How do we fit that in with the people who are making a decision? I'm not saying leverage that strategically all the time for the sake of it, but it's also having the relationship that you want to have with the various people who are making a decision. So that's if I was a customer, I would go in that way to create other business relationships. If I'm selling something and I want to approach something like it's a book deal, it's a printing deal, it's I'm going to research the person. I'm going to research their website. I'm going to research who they are. I'm going to research what they write and what's important to them. And when I approach them, I'm going to say, hey, my name is Ash. This is what I've noticed who you are, but I'd love to have a 5 or 10 or 15-minute conversation just to verify and get to know who you are, because I think I can possibly have some solutions for you. And you know what? If we don't have the solution, well and good, there may be other times in the future when I might be able to help you. So that would be something that I would have with someone I want to do business with and supply. Now, there's a whole other relationship that I could have with my inner circle. And the inner circle is some of the mentors that mentor me, whether it's on the physical or the personal realm. And when I'm looking for a mentor, it'd be something different, because now you're researching someone in a much different way, and you want him or her to help you navigate whatever it is that you're trying to navigate, a new horizon you're trying to reach. And so I'd approach that in a much, much different way of saying, hey, so-and-so, I am, wanting to know more about this industry. You are at the top of this industry. I'd love to have the opportunity to buy you a coffee, buy you lunch, buy you a drink, buy you a coffee online. Yeah. And, maybe and maybe provide some value once I can become good at this. And of course, Craig, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the last type of reaching out that I know is the one about friendship and maybe even romance, knowing the situation that passed you by in Feb. Well, we've got, I'm thinking, how do you reach out on social media? Someone that you like, someone who's, you've researched on their personal profile page, or someone who's come onto your page, or someone that because, people are not going to beat a path to your doorstep anymore to find a better mousetrap. You're going to have to say, hey, I'm out there, and you're going to have to make the move. So in a case like that, it's going to be, hey, I just find you very, well, I don't know how forward you want to be. I'm pretty forward. I'm single myself, but if it's done in an authentic way and you really mean what you're saying, then it's the most beautiful thing, because people get who you are when you're being transparent and authentic.
So I'm hoping we're going to get some questions from the chat room specifically about how to reach out and make some of these connections in their specific industry. So if you wanted to give us industry or some of your challenges you're having connecting on, we can kind of give you examples or some tips in that area. That'd be great. Or any questions. So we're going to continue our conversation. I just wanted to say hi to the chat room. So hopefully they'll encourage them to give us a little bit more questions so we help them directly. So I have a quite a different approach. I'm never trying to sell, um, but that's because I'm always community first. So I'm not your typical person, but when I'm reaching out to people, it's usually here I am. This is what I do. I'm the host of these podcasts. I've got these webinar series. I'm always looking for speakers. I'm always doing that kind of stuff. If you want to connect, let me know because if there's some value you can add to community or you want to connect with our community, here I am. And it's usually some combination of that, depending who I'm trying to get to. Because normally people either if they're running business, they want to talk to other business owners to sell their product, or maybe they have advice to give. We have lawyers and marketing experts and people like you who are in our community who want to give back and want to mentor, and these are the great kinds of connections you can make when you're not trying to sell. And also at the same time, I have all these avenues to promote you if you're interested, depending if that makes sense. And when I'm reaching out to people who, for me, would be business partners, I usually reach out saying, "Hey, I'm working on all these things." Literally, I'm working with a couple of big enterprises. I sent them an email. Hey, it's been a while. Da da da. Here are the 5 or 6 things I'm working on. Let me know if we should be working on any of these things together or you'd like to be part of them. Here's my contact information. Every one of them called me back and we set up an appointment. It was pretty, short and sweet. These are the things I'm doing. Now, other people are trying to sell specific products and services. I am like, hey, I'm writing this book. I'm doing this app. I'm doing all these things online. This is my next video series. Do you want to be part of this? So everybody's getting back to me. If I don't have any example here, but let's just say I was a marketing person and in a marketing company, and I've lost a lot of business recently. Marketing might be a bad thing because usually they can go out and find they're better at approaching people, but I want to find new clients. And in my niche online, how do I go about approaching someone, let's just say on LinkedIn, to start that relationship? And then how soon is it to switch the starting of a relationship to the selling of my product or service?
Excellent points and question. I'm a firm believer that in the fact that we're all in business, and we know that as business owners, if the product doesn't get sold, nobody makes money. So the question really becomes, how do we broach the point of sale, knowing that in every part of the relationship, we're sitting down to have a coffee, we're sitting down to have lunch and dinner, knowing that we're actually doing that as an exercise to get to know the person better and to have them move closer to making a decision to either do business with us or to do more business with us. And so, having said that, Craig, what's coming to mind is that you're someone who has already done the homework. You're already someone who has achieved the success. And it reminds me of the difference of the power of the law of attraction versus the law of promotion. So there was a time when I was at a networking event. I knew there was 100 people in the room, and I knew that I wanted to meet all 100 people. So how do you just move forward? How do you treat everybody like the number that they are? And I'm sorry to say this, but yes, that was me. And how do you move forward so that you're excusing yourself to go to the washroom, or you're saying, hey, yeah, that's nice to meet you, next. Well, the new reality is that number has changed to more of a heartfelt communication. If you don't care, then people don't care either. And the whole world, as I see it, is moving on to that kind of communication. So how do I take my whole law of promotion and make it the law of attraction? And that is where a perfect example is someone like you. As you said, you've got the app, you don't really bother people. You say, hey, yeah, maybe someday. Look how long it's taken us to connect for me to be on your show today. because you really did not close me. You didn't say, Ash, let's do it. You say, hey, let's connect sometime in the future. Let's connect sometime soon. Let's connect on Tuesday, April the 21st. It was like, boom. And that kind of subtlety, I think, is the new business. And that kind of subtlety only occurs if someone has built the foundation. If they have already done all the work, where now they become the guru that is going to attract the people versus they've got to promote the people. Let's put it this way. Oprah doesn't know one millionth of the people that know her. And that's because people will come to Oprah. She's had the tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell talks about in his book, where now you've gone from promoting yourself to actually attracting the business. And that all comes from the work we do. That all comes from the, I don't know if you know the example. Yeah, of course you do. It's a well-known example about the bamboo tree and how the bamboo tree grows.
Yeah, but you might as well share with the audience.
Yes. Well, it's a great example that comes to mind right now. And that is, there are certain types of bamboo trees where the farmer will water it in the first year, nothing happens. In the second year, the seedling, the root goes under. In the third year, there's nothing at all that happens, but a little bit of a stem pops through the ground. And all the while, everybody else has been planting their crops and getting a full benefit of their crops. In the fourth year, the bamboo tree goes from 0 to 80 feet high. And that happens within a short span of about 90 days. And I use this example only in how do we build the foundation? How do we use this COVID-19? How do we use the fact that we're all stuck in this together? Not all of us, but for those of us who can use this as a foundation builder, recognizing that in a month or 2 or 3 or 4, the work that we do reaching out to other people right now will actually come in handy for those people now to become our friends and to become our customers and to become our acquaintances and to keep strengthening those ties. And so this is the time to build that foundation so that we can become like the Craig Majors of this world, who are actually attracting people versus having to go to a networking event and force themselves on everybody.
Yeah, and I used to, people would want to be connected. I would just tell them to come to my networking events and I'd connect everybody. But it's a little harder now. And again, so here I am. I got somebody's email. I can see them on LinkedIn. And I have a B2B business proposal I want to sell them. So, you know, what is my strategy? Do I research what they're posting about? How do I start engaging them to start that relationship? Or do I really just, like you said, approach them with a business proposition right away and say, here I am, this is what I do, I think we can help you. You want to get on a 15-minute call?
It's a very, 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 very great question, because I like them both and I use them both. And so it really comes down to where are we and who are the people that we're approaching? Is it someone that might be a peer where it might actually be advantageous to have that quick business connection? But I'm becoming more of a proponent that it was the first way that was much, much, much better, especially when you know that your business is there and the business will always be there. Then you've kind of bought yourself more time in your success to make the business cycle a longer cycle. And that longer cycle would be specifically reaching out to people. If it's going to be on LinkedIn or Facebook, how about liking their comments? How about sending them a little message to say, hey, I've noticed you, and I know you're very busy, but maybe sometime in the future, would love to have a little bit of a conversation with you. I think I have some ideas that you will find very valuable. That's it. And then you leave it with them to percolate, whether they answer you or not, or if they answer you, well, now's not the right time. But if it's important to you, and depending on how important it is, start liking their posts, start commenting on their posts, and start engaging with them, because that is where you're using their time to engage with their own community. So you want to become a part of their community, engage with them. And if you're going to send them a friend request, please let them know why, which we've talked about initially that you want to do as well. But it's the engagement. And I think one of the things, because I don't have time to speak personally with all my 5,000 friends on Facebook or my LinkedIn, friends and acquaintances and connections. But one thing I look for is people who are engaging in my posts, they tell me, they announce themselves. They're telling me a lot about themselves. They're telling me who they are and how intelligently they answer and where their mind is at, what their heart is at, and what's important to them. So I think when you start to engage and show people that you care about them and what they're doing and engage with their posts and with the knowledge that they're imparting, with your own knowledge to show that you're quite knowledgeable in terms of impressing them. I think that's one of the uh, great ways to start in actually making yourself known to the person you're inevitably going to be doing business with.
Yeah, that's great. We've got Flora in the chat rooms asked specifically about a business where they're facing troubles reaching retail customers. So far, they're focused on wholesalers. So they sell grain, sesame seeds, poppy seeds, raisins, oatmeals, and they also connect with bakeries and they deliver the bread. We also they're like a mini bulk barn apparently, selling and advertising in marketplaces, a marketplace, Facebook, Instagram, eBay, and Amazon, but we haven't been able to successfully reach them and sales are low. Um, and how do you, when you're trying to reach bakeries to sell grains, how do you break years of business with their current supplier? So I'll throw it over to you and then we'll brainstorm some stuff.
Wow. Well, that's an excellent question, and it looks like Floor, you're achieving success on many fronts already, which is a great place to be. So I don't know if your wholesale business has been impacted, your Amazon business may not have been impacted because people are still buying online. You've got to buy online. The whole thing is moved online. Um, I think this question was specifically, what are you doing in that middle retail space that you could win with? And you know what? I don't know how applicable this would actually be in the COVID stage of things where we've got social distancing on the retail side of things. But if you can reach out to those retailers, start with the conversations, start with the value that you would bring in the retail business. And I would say once the COVID this whole thing is over, where you can actually have a face-to-face meeting with people, I would actually start baking some products and bread with your product and giving it to these retailers to taste and say, this is the difference either my product makes or my special secret grandma's recipe makes. But either way, that tasting your product would be one way to be creative around reaching out to these people. And having sampling sessions where you're actually sending your end user product to those places to have sampling sessions with their customers, so the customers who come in and have a slice of your bread are going to say, hey, how did you make that? And that will be the special grain that only you can provide. Now that's something that's coming to me on the spur at the moment. But what I'm also thinking in this new age of connecting with grains and all that, social media could be another good idea that you want to have. Of course, you can't taste on social media, but until COVID's over, you can talk about the various grains. I think Facebook advertising directly to the retailers that might be able to connect with you, or LinkedIn would be something to look at. Those are kind of the ideas that are coming to me up front.
I got a lot. So you can help us on how we would maybe communicate them. So a bunch of things. You're talking a lot about after COVID, and I'm always encouraging entrepreneurs that now is the time.
Yes.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for after. If we're in COVID today, great. I used to work for Deloitte and Touche, and the partner I used to work for used to say, "There's good fishing in troubled waters." So times are troubling. That means people are looking for different brands, they're looking for different loyalties, they're looking for this, and now is the time. So I sit back and say, all right, how with authenticity can you make an impact as with what you do? And I'm looking at this and saying, all right, can we now is there can we deliver free bread to the homeless bank, to healthcare workers? Can we You're delivering the bread anyway. You've got the grains. Now, all of a sudden, if you can figure out who to hit up with that and say, who can I deliver this to? Then you go out to the bakeries and your partner and say, we're doing this drive for COVID during the release. Do you want to partner with us on this? Can, you bake the bread, we'll supply you with our supplies or whatever. Now you're reaching out because you're partnering with something everyone cares about. Maybe you're not going to get super great relationships day one, but I think a lot of people, if they're having trouble with their suppliers, in this time, sometimes maybe people aren't in the factories. So flour companies, I don't know, maybe it can't meet the demand and whatnot. So now you're creating a great social media profile because you can have going out delivering baked goods to all these places and going on news, media, and PR related stuff. But you're trying to help and getting all these other locals on board where if you will bake bread for COVID healthcare workers, whatever, we will send you the grains. So just a publicity thing, different types of ideas. Any thoughts on that, Ash?
I am so impressed with what you came up with. That is crazy good. That is amazing. I think yes, absolutely. It reminds me of a guy called he's a marketing guru called Joe Polish, and Joe Polish teaches cleaning companies how to partner with their suppliers and how to partner with other people that are in the supply chain. And I think you hit it right on the head. Wow, I would even not only have the food drives and get the publicity out of it, giving food to the frontline workers, maybe to the hospital staff and to other people. But I love the partnership with the supplier that Floor can become to the retailers who are now going to take the credit for supplying the product, but they have a partnership in place in a troubled time like this. That is such an incredible idea. Yeah.
Approach all the sandwich shops or whoever and say, hey, if you make sandwiches for these people, we'll supply the bread. All of a sudden you've got partnerships with kitchens and whatever are doing this. They're already used to dealing with you. Now, again, I don't know how much it's going to cost you to do this kind of thing, but you can probably get some financial support. But yeah, I kind of do the weird idea thing to get growth hack marketing stuff. So
that is an incredible idea. Well, actually, you actually with the sponsorship, you've actually cut the cost down. So the cost now goes on to the retailer and Floor, who becomes the wholesaler, who's now, or the manufacturer who's got the cost contained. And I think the public relations and the advertising from news channels covering it is worth much more. Money can't buy that kind of coverage. So I think you've really shown Floor how to have a cost-effective, even cost-free way of reaching a whole bunch of people that will want her product.
absolutely. Reach out to Maple Leaf Foods or whoever does meat and say, hey, we're doing sandwiches for free. You going to donate the bologna or the ham or whatever, and let's go. And all of a sudden, your name is beside everybody doing this, and you're the leader. So there's a lot of challenges. Even if it's just social media, we're challenging you. We're delivering this. What are you doing to your competitors or whoever in the industry just to tag them in social media to get like that kind of response?
Amazing. Yeah, beautiful idea.
Good. Glad we were able to help. So, what's the difference? When we talked about building the foundation,
Mhm.
I think many people forget, especially when they're connect. You're hitting that button. They forget to build the foundation. So, can you tell me about what is a foundation when you talks about relationship, and how would you go about building it?
Well, absolutely, because I think the foundation is the key. I'm actually I'm reminded by a quote that George Bernard Shaw uh, said once upon a time. He says the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So I know the first time I heard that, it took me 5 minutes later and I laughed, but it's the illusion that the communication actually took place. Okay. And so I would suggest to people that what is the best way to create that foundation is to improve your communication. Communication is the key to connecting. You're not going to connect without the proper communication. So how do you improve your vocabulary? Yes, improve the number of words that you use that you can use more poignantly, more effectively to really, become that communicator as you're reaching out to people, because connecting is all about communicating. How do you use metaphor? How do you tell a story? How do you uh, how do you perfect your speaking skills so that you can move your conversations from one to one to many? How do you perfect your persuasion techniques? How do you get into even doing a touch type course where you can learn how to communicate a little bit better, more effectively, and type faster? How can you move your communication so that you're having conversations on social media like you do, Craig? But when you have a communication on social media and you have a Facebook Live running out of your Zoom and you're having chats with people on there who are now, their friends are looking at your chat and saying, hey, I wonder who this guy Craig Major is. I better get on this chat. So you've taken the communication now from a one-to-one to a one-to-many, which is what a speaker on stage will have, a one-to-many, to a many-to-many communication. And that is so important when you understand the nuance of a many-to-many communication, because now when we're posting on social media, their 5,000 friends are watching your conversation. And when he or she posts back, your 5,000 friends are watching this conversation. So there's a very, very large group of people, much larger than the conversation itself. And so master the art of communication so that you can get out there. Look at what you've done in your signature bar. You've got all of the various places your podcast can be seen in. And so you're going to be found as the guru in all of those places, from Apple, from Stitcher, to all of the above. And so try to find as many channels as possible and find the right channels, because not everybody, it's like, know who your avatar is, know who your customer is that you are, your direct target customer. Is that a woman between the age of 35 and 45 who is into interior decorating? Well, then if you're an interior decorator, you probably want to go into Pinterest, where it's very big among women who are 35 to 45. So if you're a realtor, you might want to go to Pinterest, or an interior designer. So know who your target market is, know what your avatar is as well. Who are you and who are you trying to reach? And that'll give you a much, much better idea on where is it that you want to invest your time, because we can't be everywhere. There's so much social media happening. We want to pick and choose the 3 to 5 best places to hang out in, and to, again, become that guru so that you don't have to reach out as much as they're reaching out to you, because of the type of content and the value that you're creating in the world.
Yeah, it's a great approach, and I'm lucky enough. I've been building this network for well over 5 years now, so it's grown quite a bit. So when something like this happens, it's fairly easy for me to adapt. Where my focus for the last 5 years have been in person, one-on-one mentoring, in person training, small groups, and our larger networking and pitching and whatnot events. So. But this just makes now a lot of my other plans accelerate. We were talking about going nationally and going globally and all the different things we can do now that, I don't have the physical borders anymore. That was a mental box that I put myself in that COVID-19 has removed, and opened my eyes to say, oh, there's a whole world outside of Toronto, man. You should be working on that. So I'm hoping that some other people can see the light for some of this stuff, where it changes our perspective and gives us a new opportunities. Now, I don't want to make light of the tragic situation, but at the same time, we have to keep businesses running. We still have to make revenue. If we have employees, we've got to, they've got families to feed and whatnot. It's all that cycle we want to keep going. So while we're in this, we want to make sure that we can continue to sell, that we can continue to connect, that we can continue to leverage network. So we've only got a couple minutes left. So if you have any other questions like that you want to ask in the chat room, feel free. And Ash, is there any parting words you wanted to leave with our audience, or any insights?
Craig, I love that last distinction you made as well, with how do you really create value with your customers. I think, and the fact that you are now seeing this global marketplace that COVID-19 has brought out to you as well. I would simply say, yes, I so agree with that statement, that the difference now for any retailer or wholesaler or manufacturer, for Floor and for everybody else, is to take a look at what happens between the difference of seeing 50 people at your storefront on Yonge Street to 5,000 people on online internet Main Street. And so that's the difference with the customers you can attract with the right type of marketing, with the right type of communication, with the right type of you reaching out and creating value for other people. I think it really comes down to value, value, value. We've gone from the numberization of humanity to the humanization, from the commoditization to the personalization. And I think the thing I'd like to leave everybody with is I think we have entered into a more heartfelt conversation as a result of this. I don't think that's going to change because people have realized how important it is that everyone matters where we may not have considered that before. At least I have. And so if I could leave everybody with one kind of communication to have is initiate it. Craig, as I learned from you today, don't wait for the end of COVID-19. Initiate it today. Make a list of the 5 people you're going to contact every day that are new. 4 may fall through the cracks. 1 may actually end up becoming your best friend. And not to mix personal with business, but sometimes, you know, many of our business clients that do the most business with us end up becoming our friends. And that's a great place to be. So how can we become the authority in the niche where people are also coming to us versus us having to schlep along and, you know, reach out to people on a daily basis. So build the foundation, build that bamboo tree, and we're always here to connect with you should you ever need any assistance with that.
And I think it's a good point when you're saying now, be that person that people are coming to because you're that leader. And you can make that impact now. You know, like this was just an idea we gave Florida. If she jumps on and she's the first person in her industry that does that, then she's going to, you know, have that impact and be that leader. Now is the time to start thinking outside the box, and you can build a really good reputation as you're changing things that you wouldn't have able to otherwise. You would not have been able to make that impact. Other people aren't moving as fast. So I appreciate that this is an interesting time and you can build some very interesting relationships. I really appreciate the questions in the chat room. Thank you, people, for coming out. Join us for the rest of the stuff next week. If you like that idea validation stuff we threw out, join me on Thursday where it's Ask Me Anything. So whatever problems you're having with your startups, or again, like what beer I like, or, you know, if you're a single lady and you want to say, what do you like in women? Hey, come on out and ask me that, because to Ask Me Anything, I'm all in, as I like to be social and be chatting. So the more people I can talk to right now, probably the better. So thanks everyone for coming. Thank Ash. Where can people get a hold of you and find out more?
You can get in touch with me. I'm easy to Google, so just ASHSILVA, ashsilva.com, but I'm easy to find on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'd love to get in touch with anybody that wants to connect, and I look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. And Floor, if you wanted to connect us on our Slack group, go to TorontoStarts.com, connect on Slack, and join us. That's where we have a bunch of community. Ask me all the questions you want. I'll send you links. There is some idea validation resources that'll be great for you. And I'm going to be doing some founders circle coffee chats where you can come in and jump on and get these ideas. So join us on Slack and you'll have the inside track. Thanks again, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for being a part of this.